Hi, I'm here with Mike Roberts, who's an ACBL tournament director. Okay, now, Mike, what is your role when it comes to a bridge game? If somebody walks in the door the first time they've ever played bridge and they see you, what do they need to know?
I work almost exclusively at tournaments. So for a lot of people who have just played in club games and it's their first experience at tournaments, it's acclimatizing their club level experience to tournament play. Most of it's about the same, but there are a few little things that they don't run across getting physical entry slips a lot. Most club games just like, go sit at this table. So there's a few little changes, and I just have to make sure that they're comfortable with that, make sure that they're acclimatized to whatever they're doing. But especially a lot of people that are, oh my god, it's my first time playing in a tournament. We want to make sure they're comfortable, relaxed, especially if they're playing in a novice game. So
your role is largely just to make sure that the game keeps moving and something unusual happens.
So that's my first thing, especially for newer players, just to make sure they're comfortable. Most of my job, once the game, it's running the game, I think more than perhaps it did when I first started working, a lot of it's just crisis management. You don't know what's going to happen, but you just have to make sure that try to make sure nothing happens at all, but when it does, and it will, just try and make sure it causes as little damage as possible.
I know a lot of newer players get nervous. Something unusual happened at the table. There was a lead out of turn.
Right.
Somebody misbid. They sometimes feel intimidated. They don't want to call the director.
Right. And I know, especially players, when they call the director, like, director.
Yeah.
Well,
but they're not calling the director on you. They're calling the director to get the game caught up. Really.
But it's just they get intimidated by the tone of the voice. It's like somebody calling for a call. Right. And so they get sort of...
Yeah, and that's not the real case at all.
And that's not really... And so I try, especially with newer games, to make sure that when I'm called, it's nice and relaxed. Even if they're in a disagreement, try and make sure it's as little confrontation as possible. Yeah. Because you want this to be a pleasant experience for everybody. Even if they've done something wrong, just say, okay, this is it. This is how the rules are.
And it seems that the thing that helps make the rulings a lot easier is if people just stick with the facts. They don't say, I think I should have done this. No, what actually happened? And let me know what happened. That seems to help the directors out a lot.
Yeah, that's what part of my job that's difficult is getting the facts that I need to get without cutting players off who want to tell me everything that isn't relevant to the ruling. So that's a bit of a balancing line. But you want to make sure that they feel like they've been heard before you make the ruling, even if what they're saying isn't relevant.
I've always heard the directors say, everyone's going to get a turn to speak, but I want to hear it from the person who called me first.
Yeah, one of the things that people are like, somebody starts talking and they're like, I told the director, okay, this doesn't need to be a conflict. I'll hear from everybody, as you say. You do that. So a lot of it is just getting the temperature down from like 80 degrees down to 70 or an acceptable temperature.
So you have some experience playing the game as well.
I played for I played a lot before I started directing. I played on the Canadian junior team a few times back in the 90s.
Yeah. Does that help your directing at all?
It helps to be a good player in that you can see situations. You understand if they say, well, we play reverse Drury, you know what reverse Drury is, and have familiarity with a lot of conventions. I'm not, as I said when I recently played, my system is peak 1998. I mean, it was great and up to date at that point. Since then, everybody's moved on and created 15 different conventions, which is fine. Yeah. But I just don't. I know the basics, but I don't really know the follow-ups to them. Like transfer responses to one club are increasingly popular, especially at the expert level. And I know the basics of it, but I don't really know the mechanics of it. And that's fine. But yes, it does help to be a good player. Although we're not supposed to really be using our bridge judgment when we're directing. They're trying to have, if it requires bridge judgment, consult with players. As a director, frequently that's impossible, especially when everybody is playing exactly the same boards. Getting opinions from people is somewhat problematic. But we do what we can.
One of the things that when I direct, I see sometimes is people, when they alert something and they're asked what it means, they say, "Oh, it's Drury." Well, people play. Yeah. So what's the proper thing? Like, let's say we're partners. Well, I pass. You open a heart. Mm-hmm. I respond 2 clubs. You alert, and you're asked. What's the proper explanation?
Ideally, you don't use the name of the convention at all. You would say, I'd say, well, this shows a limit raise with 3 hearts. If 3 or more hearts, depending on what kind of Drury you play. You just describe what the bid is as opposed to using the name of the convention. Frequently, people who are just so happy they remember the convention, they merrily blurt it out. So that's fine. But yes, the ideal thing to do is to describe what the bid is, not name the convention. If you do that, the opponent might say, "Well, that's Drury. Why didn't you just say Drury?" Because I'm not supposed to. So, but that's ideally what we'd like. It makes the directing life certainly easier. I think it probably would make the playing life easier. Yeah. What I do when I'm playing is I do both. I'd say, "Oh, we play this as 3-card Drury. It's 10 to 12 points, 3-card trumps for it." Something like that. But we want to get the description of the bid rather than the name of the convention.
One of the things I see newer players oftentimes not do is they don't have convention cards filled out. Yeah. Now, that is not, it is a nicety, but it's also a regulation.
Yes, they're supposed to have 2 convention cards identically filled out. We know that as a practical matter, sometimes that doesn't happen. In very high-level tournaments, we've enforced fairly drastic regulations, like saying you're just going to play incredibly basic bridge until you get something filled out. Most of the time, if one person has a good filled-out convention card available to both opponents, we'll just sort of, do a little better. But
the other nice thing about having a convention card filled out is at least you have had that discussion with your partner. A lot of times at the very basic level, they haven't even done that.
Right. So. I mean, it's somewhat difficult and problematic if you just meet your partners 5 minutes before game time. Filling out a convention card can be a little problem.
But if you played with the same guy for the last 6 weeks, you should
at least have something filled out. When I started out playing with my dad, and the 5-minute ritual is I'd scribble out a convention card in 3 minutes just before we started playing, which was good because it helped me remember conventions as well. So that was useful. But yeah, they should have 2 filled out. It's useful mostly for the opponents. Convention cards are for the opponent's benefit, but it's useful for your side as well. You can actually say, "Hey, you agreed we played this. See?" So
what other kind of stuff that players do that drives you nuts that would help make the tournament experience easier for people?
Well, slow play can be problematic. I usually don't use clocks that much. I sort of just nudge
Unless you
pairs.
Have to.
Yeah, I just sort of nudge players that are behind a lot. If I have to, I'll pull a board, but we want everybody to play as many boards as possible.
And that's something that I know Ken Van Cleef was a great director. He basically said that your partner's your friend, but your opponents are not your enemies.
Right.
And I think that's something that people sometimes forget.
Yeah, it shouldn't be, especially now as the average age of the players is getting older. It's a lot less confrontational than when I first started playing directing. You got the sense that the directors were just there to clean up the blood after the fight had finished. Now we managed to there aren't as many screaming matches as there used to be. I think Ken Van Cleef is responsible for a lot of that around here. But
the cleaning up or the screaming?
No, they're just the fact that the level of confrontation has gone way down.
Yes.
We really don't get that much. I think I get one every 2 or 3 tournaments. We get something that you would classify as an incident. But most of the time nowadays, it runs fairly smoothly.
So if somebody's brand new, is there anything else that they should know when the first time they go to a tournament?
My job, or whoever's directing, it's our job to make sure you guys are comfortable. So if you need anything, let us know. We might say, "Look, I can't help you." Somebody asks me, "Well, where's the ice?" Well, this is my club. I'm just a guy.
I mean, you might know, but you probably don't. That's not your job.
We're here to help your job, your life happier. Even though we might end up rolling against you, we're here to make the players more comfortable.
Yeah, you're not trying to I don't like Susie.
Yeah. Even players that I don't like, And there are some I don't like. We'll still try and remain professional. Not very long.
Oh, it's up here, yes.
It's not. So.
No, I'm joking. Yeah.
But our job is to make you comfortable. If you have anything, just let us know, and we'll see if we can help you out. But don't be afraid of tournaments. They're not much different than club games nowadays. And it should be a good experience. We hope to see you here.
And finally, when you were playing in Canada, was it tough to play bridge with all the snow coming down?
No. Well, I was in Victoria. Victoria doesn't count about snow. There's also this old joke that they had the Canadian national magazine, Maclean's, 30 years ago had this competition where you had to complete the sentence, "It was so cold that blank." And so Montreal and Toronto were doing things like, "It was so cold that my spit turned to ice before it hit the ground," or something. But the winning entry was from Victoria, which has this wonderfully temperate climate. And it was so cold that I had to wear both of my gloves when I went golfing. And so the rest of the country hates Victoria because of this. But so yes, I didn't have too much snow to do.
Yeah. So just in summary, remember, the director is here to help the tournament go on. The director is here to help you as a newer player get a good experience at your first bridge game. So, Mike, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.